ANMAtalks is an initiative for sharing knowledge between students, staff and management of the Nordic and Baltic Academies for Higher Music Education and anyone else interested. Welcome to this 10th edition, ANMAtalks, Musicians' Professional Resilience. Where does it come from?
Sigrid and John, if you could please introduce yourselves and welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Camilla. Nice to be here. My name is John Vinge. I'm an associate professor in music education at the Norwegian Academy of Music. And I'm also the head of the bachelor program in music education in the academy. And I've been I'm really happy that I was invited into this research project by my colleague, Sigrid Røyseng. Hi to you.
Hi, my name is Sigrid Røyseng. I'm sitting just a few offices besides John here at the Academy of Music in Norway. And I'm a professor of cultural sociology. I take care of our program in cultural leadership at the school and also the PhD program, the scientific PhD program in music research.
Yes.
So, yes, John, let's
start. We have made a presentation. If I do like this, do you see it's the black? Yeah, good. So today's topic is on professional resilience, and this is just one of several articles coming out of a greater or a large research project on the musicians' working situation, professional musicians' working situations. So we thought we would just give first an introduction to the larger research project and then focus more on professional resilience. So the research project, Shifting Landscapes of Musicians' Work, was first initiated by the National Council for Higher Music Education in Norway in order to gain knowledge on different aspects of the labor market for musicians. And this Council for Higher Music Education includes all the institutions that provide music performance studies and creative music education in Norway at bachelor's and master's level. And updated knowledge on the life of the professional musician is of importance for educational institutions to make an account for the study program's relevance. So our ambition with this research project has been to contribute with research-based knowledge on what different change processes in cultural society in large mean for the working situations, roles and identities of professional musicians. And we situate our study in what we call like a complex and shifting field of music, cultural society in large. And several general change processes in society in large and in the field of music raise questions of what kind of labor market awaits tomorrow's musicians. So some initial words about those change processes. Rapidly changes in digital technology has affected the music industry, allowing music to be produced, distributed, and consumed in new ways. Hand in hand with globalization, this has affected, means that the world is getting smaller and that musicians can find audiences and partners anywhere around the world. A considerable growth in the artist population has led to increased competition in the labor market. The need to put together a professional career based on shorter engagements as so-called portfolio careers has grown correspondingly. Entrepreneurial expectations have been prominent in cultural policy discourse since the turn of the millennium. And higher music education has also adapted to this idea, offering courses in, for example, business management skills, alongside the traditional hard body of artistic subjects. Previous cultural structures are also challenged by redefinitions of traditional value systems. While it was relatively easy a few decades ago to point out which music genres had a high social status, this has become far more a complicated landscape today. And furthermore, ongoing public debates on gender issues, inclusion and exclusion, as well as sustainability issues have contributed to this increasingly complex nature of the music industry. And it's in this complex landscape this study sets as a departure and aims at describing and understanding through the musicians that inhabit it. Some words about research also, a quick. So the aim of the research progress is thus to provide new insights into the structures, roles, and opportunities that exist and shapes the professional music life today, with a particular emphasis on what characterizes a professional life as a musician. So we did, as Camilla mentioned in the start, we did in-depth interviews with 57 professional musicians. And the informants, they represent a breadth of musical genres and practices. They are freelance musicians, conductors, composers, church musicians, and professional orchestral musicians. They do jazz and improvised music, classical and contemporary art music, folk music, popular music. They combine performance work to varying degrees with educational activities, studio work, arranging, composing, concert and festival production. And the majority of our informants have all studied music performance at conservatory level. And together they represent all the institutions that provide music performance studies in Norway. The interviews, they were semi-structured and revolved around issues such as musical upbringing, formal and informal learning strategies, creative strategies, finance and sources of income, inclusion and exclusion, and so on. And together, those interviews constitutes around 85 hours of interview data and around thousands pages of interview transcripts. And this material has been analyzed in various steps, mainly using qualitative strategies, searching for central themes and emergent empirical concepts. And we ended up on 7 main categories, all elaborated into 7 really, really good articles you can read about in the book. But a short introduction on them. We have one on roles and professional boundaries, where we describe different professional roles that characterize the labor market and discuss how musicians negotiate the symbolic limits of their professional practice. We have one where we describe and discuss the strategies that are used by musicians to seize the opportunities in the field. And by doing this, we also do a thorough analysis of what we have called professional artistic agency. We have one article that constructs possible curriculum ideologies that affect educational content and practices in higher music education. One article that discussed the climate changes, current and future impact on the musicians' professional activities. One article on gender, concerning ambivalence towards gender role expectations and gendered structures. One article that addresses the capital of visibility, and finally, that one on professional resilience. And then we have come to today's topic. Sigrid?
Yes. So when we had done all these interviews, one of the questions that we were asking ourselves was, given all the changes that is going on in the music business, and all the challenges that professional musicians meet. It's a question whether this is at all an attractive profession to be in because of the competition, because of could you please just shift the slide, John, just to help me? Yeah, the increased competition, the variable incomes, pretty much low incomes and high risk that meets the music profession, and also the expectation of helping out yourself when it comes to the financial aspect of being a musician, rather than depending on public support. And on top of that, because as Camilla said, we did these interviews during the pandemic between August 2020 and February 21. And all these aspects are challenges to the music profession. And we asked ourselves, is it still an attractive profession? And the interviews was very fascinating because they gave the clear impression that the music, being a professional musician, really feels like a meaningful and motivating professional. It feels motivating and meaningful to professional musicians today. So we just followed up with what is it that makes this profession so meaningful, also when these challenges hit the profession. Can you just, yes. And then we used the concept of resilience, which you might have heard before. It's very well known from psychology. So resilience is a concept that you will meet often also in the media, in the daily press. And in psychology, it's the definition that you will find is what you see on the slide, that it simply denotes the mere fact that of an individual's stability and quick recovery, or even growth under significant adverse conditions. So resilience is a concept that grasps what happens when you are able to continue to have a good life, even if there are big challenges. But we don't use the psychological concept, we use the sociological concept. Within sociology, it means the capacity of groups or people bound together in an organization, class, racial community, or a nation to sustain and advance their well-being in face of challenges to it. We consider musicians as a social group, or more precisely, as an occupational group, a profession. So we introduced the concept of professional resilience in order to kind of grasp this aspect of feeling that your work, your professional life is meaningful, even if you face a lot of challenges. And in our material, in the interviews, we found 4 resources or strategies that musicians use in order to have this sense of meaningfulness in their professional life. So the first one is about music itself, that doing music feels so strong and meaningful just to be in the music. And then we have creative adaptations of the work situation, finding your niche in a competitive profession, and also resistance towards neoliberal cultural policy. And we will go deeper into all those 4 categories. So, and we will show you some examples from our very interesting interviews. So this is Anna, and she is a classical musician working with contemporary music, and she is describing this this work she's doing in this way. In retrospect, I have seen that when I work with really heavy contemporary music, I can hate it when I start working with it. I can cry. I want to throw it in a wall because it's so difficult and I don't understand anything. And then the more I work with it, I work with it, and suddenly it has come into my body. And so, oh, I like it very much. And this is an experience of getting through difficulties with the music and feeling this satisfaction as a bodily experience, so to speak, which is we found very interesting, that this is really a resource in staying in the profession. And also many of our musicians talked about their experiences of how music works in social settings. Like many of them had experiences of playing in funerals and seeing the really power of music. And one of them, a jazz musician, by the way, says this: I really believe in the healing effect of music. That it has a power that reaches much further than we control and know of. I feel very much like now I do something meaningful. Now I'm out doing something that touches people, and that must be the best thing you get to experience. So it's also how music is experienced as a social power, so to speak. And the last one, which really describes the resilience, I think, because this is again Anna, the classical musician we started with. So she is addressing the challenges that she meets as a freelance classical musician. And she says, so in a way, you always have to be in that conflict. I think that it is completely exhausting, like having to fight for jobs. And that's enough to make me wonder whether I'm strong enough. And I reconsider that again and again and again. But then fortunately, I have so many musical strong experience, so I have not stopped yet. So this is a very nice quote to show how the power of music, the experiences of the meaning of music is so strong that even if you face challenges, it's worthwhile staying in the profession. So now it's your turn again, John.
I have to unmute myself. So the musicians are meeting different challenges and surroundings and changes a lot, and they have to adapt. And we have found that many talk about how they continuously and often in a creative way adapt to the conditions for practicing their profession. And it has a lot to do with unsecure income, as Sigrid has mentioned. And to secure income, many combine different jobs, of course, in different periods, building what is called a portfolio career. They combine performing careers with larger or smaller teaching positions. Others have paid positions in music organizations or in festival production. Others do outreach work. And these are all considered like strategies for securing a form of stable income. But we also find the desire to just be an artist, just to be a performer, is regarded very highly important for some of our informants, that they find ways to adjust their personal finances to low and unstable income. One informant tells, I actually live very frugally. That is, music is my whole life. I don't have very many other needs. And another tells similarly, there has been periods where I don't get much gigs. I reckon almost every experience this once in a while. Then I think much on how I use my money. So the musician's adaptation to the working situation is either to establish a kind of portfolio career or come to terms with the fact that at times it will be financially challenging and a good personal financial management will be required. And the musician's willingness to adapt is also evident in question concerning the last year's corona situation, where a good number of informants told about how they had used the lockdown to go in depth in particular aspects of their music, that they had time to practice, extra rehearsals, or time to make new music. They also told about how they developed new concert concepts that fit into the limited restrictions of the corona formats of the corona restrictions. A lot of them, as you know, did those so-called streaming concerts. Other made high-end videos, or some even did remote tracking for artists and bands. And one artist who had previously to the corona situation toured with a big orchestra or a 5 or 6 piece band used the period to rehearse the concert repertoire with a smaller ensemble. And such an adaptation was forced by the fact that the corona situation didn't allow that many people on stage or that many people on tour, or that venues couldn't sell that many tickets to be able to pay that amount of music. And that adaptation would later be used, she said, as a strategy for greater financial flexibility. She says, this has been a bit new with corona then, that I have to play a number of concerts with a slightly smaller ensemble. So I spent some time now developing a full band package and a trio package that I hope can work as equal things, that there will be not such thing as an A and a B team. It has often been that I have to give my salary to the others in the band, or that the others get a little more and I get a little less. Our material also showed that musicians use a number of strategies that curb the feeling of vulnerability and make the competition in the professional world livable. We find such strategy not at least when the informants point out their own strengths and weaknesses as musicians in comparison with others. One informant works project-based as a conductor and is higher on shorter engagement for orchestras all around in Norway. When he compares himself with his conductor colleagues that works full-time positions in one orchestra over time, his strategy is to point out that he is a craftsman and sets up craft up against art. He says that my project is to be kind of a potato. I'm a skilled craftsman, and being a craftsman is not in that sense an artistic project. It's just being damn good. In many ways, I'm that typical studio musician that come in and deliver the goods every damn time, but it's not about me. Not about me meaning he as an artist, but he as a craftsman. Where the informant above in this quote anchors the value of his business in the craft, others emphasize that they have found their path in an artistic voice that sets them apart from others. One tells, I was never the best. There was always many others who had more to do and were asked more than me. And I thought a lot about that. Why have I managed to live as a musician afterwards? One thing that I think has been very important for me is that I've spent a lot of time developing my own bands, my own repertoire, or my own style. And finally, to compare oneself with others and through that identifying one's own strengths and weaknesses is an aspect of professional identity construction we find in our material. Some emphasizes their strength in the creative drive to stem up what they themselves regard as a lack of craftsmanship, while others point precisely to the craftsmanship as what gives them value as a musician. Some take control of their own business, initiating projects, and through that reduces their vulnerability. One says, the final quote here, "It might sound a bit silly to say, but I think my creative urge comes from low self-esteem. It comes from when I was a music student. I probably compared myself too much to others. I thought that others played much better than me, and they also did, but I was young. So if I wanted to achieve something, I had to make my own music, because then I could invite others or ask others to join in." Sigrid?
Okay, we're now going to the fourth category, which is resistance towards neoliberal cultural policy. And the concept of professional resilience is very much about resistance towards challenges. And one thing that was very interesting in the material was that there was I will not say it was a unison resistance, but it was a really strong voice in our interviews that was resisting the neoliberal cultural policy that has to do with artists and also musicians being more entrepreneurial in their way of being professionals. And this is interesting because in reality, many of our informants are entrepreneurs. They make their own business. They find the finances they need, and the projects, develop projects and collaborations and so on. But there is a resistance towards the ideology associated with entrepreneurship. And I think Anna, the classical musician, sums it up very well, because she says, you could say there are two sides to this issue. And one is entrepreneurship as a way to develop yourself. Entrepreneurship is an opportunity for self-realization. That's what I did. I have found that by being able to apply for money, by building projects myself, and by collaborating with people, I can simply create a life with artistic projects that I'm passionate about. But I must say that the way it is used politically, I see an ominous way to build down institutions, to build down support schemes that are to say, culture, entrepreneurship is so nice, because then we don't have to pay for artists to exist. I think part of the opposition towards entrepreneurship is that people understand that it is a way to paint a picture and at the same time build down a very well functioning cultural life. So Anna really explains this ambivalence, I would say, towards the concept of entrepreneurship in the environment of the music profession. Can you please? Yes. And this was really interesting also in the face of the pandemic, because there are the profession really experienced the most, I would say, challenging times we know of in modern times. And one of the informants told about how the pandemic meant an instability that is or challenges that are more severe than the previous one, that you really know of as a freelance musician anyway. So she says, all musicians are used to instability and uncertainty, to being able to live with that. You can juggle it, but now it's an extra factor that just sweeps away everything. So in a way, there's nothing left. What you relied on as a kind of security, that you have something to offer, that at least someone wants, now it's all gone. There is nothing left. For me, it creates an uncertainty around the whole life situation as a musician, and what it will look like for everyone after this. My heart bleeds a little when I see that this is what is taken first. The trading industry, the discussion we have had around it. It hurts so much to see that it is so easy to take our industry and just push it aside. I think it hurts quite simply. So this is interesting because we see that it really means something how society responds to the pandemic and how that affects the music profession. And this quote is from the same musician. She's also a classical musician. And she says that you must have a society that values what you're doing in this industry as well. If you don't get any feedback from society that it is a matter of course that this industry should exist afterwards as well, then it will be quite heavy. And this is, I think, important in order to understand professional resilience, because what this means is that resilience is not only what the psychologists say that it is. That is something kind of the resource that you have in you in order to meet challenges. This also has to do with how society treats different problems. So it really means something what how the music industry and the arts in general are treated when there are a crisis like the pandemic in society. So to conclude, we think that the professional resilience of musicians are built on the four strategies and resources that we have presented, and that this means that musicians actively create a professional life where they experience well-being, meaning, and value, and that this is manifested both intellectually, emotionally, physically, and socially. So even if these are, of course, individual experiences, and we quote individual musicians that we have interviewed individual as well, but they build on collective resources. So the collective resources that we find is this: the power of music, the feeling of the meaningfulness of music, the creative strategies to adapt to different kind of situations, and finding your niche in order to reduce the feeling of vulnerability, and also this resistance towards neoliberalism as the ideology that has meant that artists and musicians are expected to act more entrepreneurial in their professional life. But what we also want to stress that is that even though we find this kind of professional resilience, and it seems to be quite strong among musicians, it's not a stable thing, it's not a static thing, it's something that also change as the environment change. And this is what comes up when we bring the pandemic into the picture, because the pandemic shows that the resilience was also challenged. So many of our informants also told about insecurity, as you saw, like Elin, the classical music, told about the new kind of insecurity that she felt during the pandemic, which is a new thing. Our message is, so to speak, that there is a professional resilience among musicians that is really impressive, really fascinating, but it's also something that is not only there by itself. It has to be anchored in some collective cultural resources, and we think that is both within the profession but also anchored in society at large. And up against this picture, we also want to stress that we think that there is a potential of the music profession, because being trained as a musician is in a sense also very individualized. You're trained very much in individual skills and so on, and maybe not exposed so much to the idea that we are a profession, we have something in common, and if we join our forces, we have also something to meet the challenges that society sets up for us, even whether it being neoliberal ideologies or a pandemic that is coming up. So we think that speaking more about the professional resilience of musicians and also about being part of a collective that can do something together, there is a potential there. So thank you so much for your attention. I think I will now ask Camilla to take over for a discussion.
Yes, thank you so much, Sigrid and John. And actually, you just, Sigrid, provided the perfect bridge to the next thing we're going to do. So thank you so much for that. I'm now going to invite another person onto our digital stage here. You should see her now. This is Eline Agu, who has also joined us today. Eline is representing the new European Student Union, EPASA, which is where the perfect bridge comes in, because this is exactly about what you're saying, Sigrid, building the idea that you're part of a profession. So Eline, would you please introduce yourself and maybe share a few words about what EPASA is?
Of course. Thank you so much, Sigrid and John. Hi, everyone. I'm Eline. I was a music student in Belgium at Lucas School of Arts in Leuven. And I was also a co-chair of the student working group of the AC. And together with the students, we created an association that's very new. It's called EPASA, the European Performing Arts Student Association. And we want to be an inclusive, accessible platform that empowers the student voice in the higher education and create a good, effective student representation system on a European level for every performing arts students. And a little bit like Sigrid said, is that these are changing times for musicians and also for music students. There are a lot of uncertainties in what their profession will be. And we see that a lot of students are quite feeling isolated and in their individual music studies. And also COVID has been quite isolating. And that has affected well-being mentally and physically on students. And we as EPASA, we have 25 members at the moment, full members, so full associations of student representations, but also individual members from Armenia, Denmark, France, Belgium, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, UK, the Netherlands, a lot of countries. And we try to support the students, create an information hub, and also connect them and try to build a network for them. And we organize talks online, but also we're really representative at congresses throughout Europe. So yeah, I think that's the bridge between what Sigrid and John said. It's quite what we do or try to do as well, to give a little bit that support, but a little bit more towards the students who are gonna be our musicians in the future. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Eline. And we're now going to turn this into a small panel discussion. We can call it a semi-structured panel discussion, just to follow the publication itself. So I'd like to ask a question to all of you, because I think this is a very interesting point to go into. In your opinion, what is the role of the educational institutions in building this professional resilience? What is happening there? Because as you said, it's kind of it seems like a bit of a magical thing, right? But you also point out that it doesn't come by itself, maybe. So that would be interesting to hear your thoughts about that. And any of you can contribute, of course.
I can start if you want.
Yes, Sigrid, thank you.
Yeah, because as I said when I introduced myself, I'm a professor of cultural sociology, and I started working at the Norwegian Academy of Music in a full-time position in January 2019, and I think it might be a signal of the changes that is going on in higher music education as well, that a sociologist like me is present at the school because it's a quite new thing to have a sociologist around. And I think higher music education is developing into a place where reflections on not only how to handle, the specialized part of being a musician, but also what kind of environment, what does the business look like, and what kind of, or how can we have a dialogue with society at large about what music means and so on. So I think there is something going on in higher music education that's really they're trying to develop some way of including ideas of not only being this individual kind of training, and that there are room for reflections around the music profession, what it means to be a professional musician, and the different aspects of the business and society. So there's something going on. I think we are at a place that we have developed a bit the last years, and of course there is a potential to go further with this. But I just wanted to say that there are developments.
Yeah, I to follow up that, to come with another kind of perspective, I think that to provide or to build a professional resilience, we have to a larger extent take the students out of the institutions, out of the rehearsing rooms. You have to give them relevant working experience, if either in the performing part, and also like outreach work, educational matters. We have to, like, I had a student now at the academy. We went to a field trip in a little village in Norway. It was in her 4th year, and we played at a senior center for people with and she's a classical trained flutist, and she came out after I played for these elder people in wheelchairs, and she said that this felt important now. I have never done this. And I thought, have you never been out? No, she's been trained, and she's a really, really skilled musician, but have no experiences with the world outside our institutions. So that is the problem. You are to build really experienced, skilled musicians, and for what? So I don't know if that is an answer to the question, but I think that we have to get engaged with the world outside, giving our students relevant working experience, and not and maybe make them find out things themselves, but there aren't always people to set up the the microphone stands and the sheet music and everything is organized for them. They have to find out themselves. So yeah, it was a start.
Thank you, John. Eileen, do you have something to contribute as well?
Just to say that I totally agree with John that your study said that strong, meaningful experience are very important for that resilience. And if we bring that to the students and those who are going to be those who in the future that be musicians, and give already then that, you know, that feeling of I matter, and a beautiful example, John, of the elderly home. Myself, I've been working with refugees a lot as a musician, and that gave me the strength to go further also in COVID times with my studies. So again, I think the outcomes of your study can also almost copy paste on music students. Yeah, that's an insight.
Thank you, Eileen. I saw that Viviane raised her hand. Viviane, would you like to contribute?
Yes, I will.
And are you okay that I put you on the screen then?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, great. You'll get on the screen.
That's all right.
There
well,
you go.
I am an associate professor of singing in Aarhus in the Royal Academy there. And I've been teaching there for many years. And I have all these singers that come to my class every week for individual sessions. And it's really interesting to listen to your research because and I'm really happy about the results, because I've been wondering what is going on with the young people now, and how are we going to get through this with some kind of joy and happiness about singing and playing music. And I think that you have created some focus on it here, that it's really, well, it's okay. It's nice and to see that there is they're considering it, and how they're getting through it is actually happening now. I see it also myself. We just finished our final concert exams at the Royal Academy, and the level of personal statements in their music and how they perform was absolutely higher than it normally is, because I think they have had the time to really dig deeper into it in their personal, loneliness and all those kind of things they've been faced with. So it was interesting to hear that you also have some evident data on it. Of course, it's been hard, but it creates resilience, as you say also. And the whole thing about looking forward, I find is interesting also, because what's happening these years and also before the pandemic is that the young people are working on, and so am I, because I need to not just create good voices, but help them to take that step into the real work world, and also help them to be more interested in creating their platforms and also online. And I find it's tough today for the young people. They spend a lot of time on checking up their social platforms and stuff, and also just being managers and publishers and all those kinds of things. So I find this really interesting. Thank you for your work.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Viviane. It's always good to hear also from other voices. And of course, this is also the point of ANMAtalks, to actually connect these experiences, so that we're not only, so to say, seeing the world in our own institutions, but we actually get the possibility to see it from different angles as well. And there are often many common points. Another question that I wanted to ask all of you, and everyone, please feel free to contribute, is I'm wondering, is there a downside to this resilience? Because we also know, now I'm stating it as if it's a fact, please challenge that if you disagree with me, but that well-being, mental health, stuff like this is coming more and more on the agenda in the institutions now, but it hasn't always been the case. So there's always this ambiguity between resilience. Is that really something we want, or what kind of it do we want? if you understand my question. So is there a downside to this? I know it's a tough one. Yes, Sigrid.
Of course, there is a downside, and I think it's related to the responsibility that is often placed on the individual musician or the individual music student in order to cope with everything and find the resilience in themselves, so to speak. But what we do here is to develop a concept of professional resilience, because I think it's too much to ask of that the individual music student or the individual professional musician should take care of all this by themselves. And I think it's not possible either. I think we need to join our forces and think of this as a collective task and develop the professional the profession, so to speak. So we have reflected a lot about this, because using this concept is a bit difficult, and I think that is what you address, Camilla, that there might be this feeling of, okay, musicians, they have so much joy with the music that they can cope with whatever challenge that hit them. And that is not the point, because it's not like an endless kind of resource. We need to go together and also see this as something that is not static. It can change, and the pandemic really challenged it. So this idea of resilience as something social and professional, I think is really important to not get into these downsides, which I think the psychological concept might lead us to. Yeah.
Eileen?
During the COVID pandemic here in Belgium, a lot of funding got blocked for musicians and other arts. And one of the things the government said was, art will get up anyway. They will find their way back if we give them money or not. And that another field need us more, kind of. And I think that shows that resilience, that it is there, but that doesn't mean that we can block every support for arts people in general, because they will find their way anyway to do their art. So I think that's, if you take it very much black and white, I know that's not the case, but it can be, there is a little downside to it, I think. So yes, we are resilient, but as Sigrid said, we need to do it together, and it's not only a personal responsibility.
Yes, Sigrid, please.
Yeah, I think it's fair to share some contextual knowledge, because we have done this study in Norway, and in a European context, I would say that it's a country that has prioritized the arts and the cultural sector also during the pandemic, and this of course has affected our results. So it's not like you can take these results into any kind of context and say it's the same, because of course there have been also tough times for musicians and other artists in Norway, but compared to other European contexts, I would say that Norwegians have had a better time, because we have a good economy. That's a simple fact here. Yeah.
Thank you. John, do you have a final comment for this as well? Otherwise, we're going to start wrapping up.
No, I think I don't have any comments. It was, yeah, and also just to follow up quickly on Sigrid's also last comment, we also did our research in the first part of the pandemic, the first time of the lockdown. And being like a state full of oil money, a lot of the musicians also said that this was a really, really good period for them to finally have a vacation, to finally be able to practice. And they got paid for the jobs that were cancelled. But that was in the first part. Things have changed because it took 2 years. So we can, so maybe we have to do a follow-up interview, Sigrid. Yeah.
We're all looking forward to that. Now I have reached the point in these ANMAtalks sessions where I have to be very, very creative every time. And the whole purpose of this is that I'm going to convince you to answer this questionnaire that I have posted in the chat now. Of course, the whole point of this is that we keep looking for interesting topics to put into the ANMAtalks sessions. So I would be very, very happy if you would click the link and then sit down with a nice cup of coffee. And if you can manage to both answer the questionnaire and drink your coffee, I promise you it will take you 3 seconds. So don't take a coffee that's too hot. That's going to burn you if you're trying to drink it all while answering the survey. But I would appreciate it very much if you would do so. Now we're going on ANMAtalks vacation, but we are coming back in September with a talk around quality enhancement in collaboration with the international organization Musique, who will be joining us on that part of it. So thank you so much, John, Sigrid, and Eileen. Eileen has just posted a link also to the EPASA website. Please share that with the students in your institution. They have a great opportunity there to meet others in the bigger international community. And thank you also to you, Bibiane, for jumping into the panel. It's always lovely you got to stay here. I hope that was okay. And have a lovely summer, all of you.